and it is the Desert Fox, signing on. And for today's video, we'll be challenging the official narrative that we all heard when we were children, the story of Jesse James. Now, we all heard it. Bob Ford shot Jesse James through the head, and well, that's the end of Jesse James' story. There's no real, kind of ending to it. It's just Jesse died, and everyone went on with their lives. So it was a sad ending. But today, we're questioning that narrative, and asking the question, did Jesse James really live to 103? And before we proceed any further, we have to lay out some basic ground rules for this video. Now, these rules will be, see this bro? Well, I don't know his name, but he posted a video with all the information for this one. So please, go to the description and click on the link below, and I'll take you to his video. The video is very informational and collects resources and facts. This also means that you can be very, trusting of that video because he gives hardcore proof evidence of everything he says, as well as I, and spread the message. I'm not copying this video in any such way. And let's get on. So, first, to, really tell the end of the story for Jesse, we have to examine the first couple years of his life and later life. So let's start. Jesse James was born on September 5th, 1847 in Missouri. His mother was Matilda James, and we don't know his father's name due to records being burnt and such things like that. So his father's name goes very much missing. So we just call him Mr. James. Now, from what we know in the very few family dramas and the accordance of the county and everything such as that, from what we know, Matilda was, how do I put this? Banging the local town doctor. And, this is how basically Jesse was born. He is only the half-brother of Frank James. However, they never came to know this, but the father obviously did. Now, somewhere along the way, obviously, Mr. James died. We don't know where, but he died of, we're assuming it's tuberculosis. He was buried in an unmarked grave, and later in Jesse and Frank's life, they came looking for him, but they couldn't find him because they're in the middle of bumfuck nowhere. So, obviously, they couldn't find him, so it's in an unmarked grave. Now, to examine a couple years ahead, you see, because the rest of Jesse's life is not very important, it's just local farm boy stuff, and not much of any evidence, proof, or matter for this video. So, we go to the Civil War. Now, Jesse was, I don't know how to put this, a Viet Cong southerner, as a joke, because, his strategy was to fight the North with no gun but a knife, and, grab the other dead man's gun on the battlefield. He thought this would be faster than having your own revolver, and it was. So, after the Civil War and a bloody, horrible defeat, you see, Jesse was returning to his family and saw a widow. She had to pay a loan of $300 to some debt collecting motherfucker, you know those guys. Anyways, so Jesse and him, they said, okay, we'll give you the $300. The collector came, took the $300. Then Jesse and Frank, robbed the dude for the $300 back. And this is where they started to get an idea for robbing bigger and bigger things and getting into the outlaw lifestyle. Now you see, to see the real importance of Jesse James and not just some outlaw character in a movie as some hillbilly, we really have to kind of examine his life. And by this I mean we have to examine what he influenced. And we'll talk about some of the actual presidents he had assassinated. He had 4 in total, but we're unaware of the 2. We only know about 2. So this would be Abraham Lincoln and Peter Garfield. And basically, he had these guys assassinated in the hopes to start a second Civil War. Second, also, he had Custer at the Battle of Little Bighorn because he knew Custer was going to run for president. actually killed because guess what? Jesse James ran repeaters to the Indians, and guess what? Basically, you had the Battle of Little Bighorn turn in the Indians' favor to kill Custer. This would hopefully start a civil war in Jesse's mind, but it never did. So, since we got our very bare bones fact down, we have to examine more of Jesse's life. Okay, now that we have our, of course, bare bones shit down, and we don't have to explain, Jesse went to the shitter. Jesse wiped his ass at 10 p.m. accordingly. Now we don't have to explain every single detail. We have to get the motivations, early life, and basic stuff down. Then we are good. But now let's state our goddamn outlandish theory so we can actually run for this video. Okay, so first we have to get the photos and proving who is real Jesse and who is not. So first, this is Jesse James with the handsome, perfectly curled mustache. This derpy fucker over here is not Jesse James. This is a photo of another man that Jesse used as a dummy, as a body bag basically. Basically a look-alike. Now, let's take this motherfucker out of there, and this motherfucker out of there. So, we don't have to talk anymore about them. Now, let's talk about the establishments that Jesse was in, and the establishment that Jesse created. So, Jesse was in Knights of the Round Table, which was basically a South will rise again type of club. Now, this club was actually super influential. Like we said, they had a huge role in assassinating Lincoln, such as John Wilkes Booth was actually part of that club, Knights of the Round Table. So basically, and they were supposed to invade Mexico by making this another civil war. And you see, who was in this was actually Jesse, and they were all also in the 33 Degree Masons Club. 33 Degrees, if you don't know, in the Freemasons is top of the line, best you can get, 100%. So, basically, that's pretty impressive to get the 33rd degree Mason. Now, another thing that Jesse started was, believe it or not, prepare to have your goddamn worldview shattered, Jesse James started the Ku Klux Klan. And, well, this was supposed to actually repel the blacks out of the South and kind of start another Civil War faction group that they could rely and use upon. And, like we said, also, Jesse James also funded the Indians at Little Bighorn with Chief Sitting Bull to, guess what? Get the repeaters and basically do gun running. And then they could actually get Custer dead, and basically that would hopefully stop the North from growing even more powerful. However, none of this came to fruition, and as the age of the outlaw came to an end, Jesse James was starting to see that there was no more place for him to run. So, he had a accomplice, Bob Ford, and his brother. Now, here's something funny about Bob Ford. His mother, Zerelda, I think that's her name. Goddamn, that bitch's name couldn't be any harder to pronounce. Basically, what Well had said that Bob Ford and Jesse were cousins. So this would make it much different than this would make it a lot harder. So to shoot your cousin. So basically, then we skip to let's actually show our house where Jesse was shot in. And this is the chair, and this is the bullet. Now this is where stuff starts to go a little weird. Now you see, the pistol that Bob Ford used to kill Jesse was a .45, basically just Colt. This is basically the most standard pistol back then, most popular. And basically shot Jesse with this. Now, this is supposedly dead Jesse. However, from what we know, a .45 going through your goddamn head should make a much, much larger exit wound than entry. So, basically, this seems a little strange, but we're never seeing the backside of Jesse's head. So, if we're convinced that Jesse had his back turned, the exit wound is always larger than the entry wound, well, you see, this is a little weird. So, now that we move on to this, here's where we're starting to see a lot of cracks in the mainstream official story. So, what we what we're starting to see here is some strangeness with just science and everything like this, because it doesn't take a goddamn genius to know that Jesse was tall enough to reach the portrait what was supposedly hanging up. He did not need a chair to get up on it and move the painting. Now his wife was asked, well, did Jesse ever lay his guns out on the table? Now in the story, he took off his gun belt in his home with 2 guys behind him that he only met a couple days ago, put it on the table, turned his back to fix the painting. What the hell? I don't know, but if you're a soldier, if you've ever been in trouble with the law, if you've basically ever had any common sense of you, you would never leave your guns anywhere, especially when there's 2 suspicious strangers behind you, and somehow you're just going to lay your gun belt there and fix a painting. That seems a little strange. And obviously the story's starting to get very cracky here. Now, the mayor of the town, I will list his name here accordingly, you see, was actually childhood friends with Jesse. So, and just a few days before that, Bob Ford actually met with him. Now, most people say, well, he met with him to discuss how he would bring Jesse's body in and basically get the ransom. But here's the problem with that. If you were childhood friends with this guy and Jesse donated a whopping $10,000 goddamn dollars to fucking his campaign, the mayor. So, oh god, $10,000 back then is quite a bit, and I will translate that in today's money up on the screen here. So basically, this was a giant whopping amount of money. Yeah, just a massive. So obviously, we start to see some more cracks with dirty politicians and friends and favors and money and campaigns again. Okay, so now the angle that Jesse was supposedly shot at does not make sense either, because how could he get shot through the temple here, come out this side, and then somehow end up going straight up like that? That doesn't make very much sense. Plus, the hole in the wall is way too large. Bob Ford also said that the bullet never let Jesse's skull. Wait, how the hell? Well, why do we see a thing right here? That doesn't make any sense. So the bullet never let Jesse's skull. It's a little strange, very strange now. Now the second thing is Jesse James' body was massively, very much decomposed. Now, see, the funny thing about this was he was just shot like an hour ago, and how could his body be this decomposed at this point? Now, it wasn't like rotting skin coming off the bone. It was just stinky, and it didn't seem right. It seemed like the skin was there for a few days. Now, what later Frank James said was, that was not Jesse. What he said was he invited a man named John Bigelow over, and when he came in, Jesse shot him through the head with an unknown but smaller caliber. This would make sense because the injury wound on this guy's head is straight, and here's the thing. So that would actually make sense with what Frank said. So we're starting to see even more matching proof and evidence that Jesse James did not die. Now, there was another guy named J. Frank Dalton. Now, it doesn't take a goddamn rocket scientist to know that J. Frank Dalton is a alibi for Jesse, because J stands for Jesse, Frank is his brother's name, and Dalton, it all works out totally perfect. So J. Frank Dalton, Jesse also wrote the Dalton Gang and stuff like that, and so basically this would perfectly match up. J. Frank Dalton is perfect alibi for Jesse James. Now you see, we have a misconstrued evidence of DNA tests with Jesse James' relatives to his body. Now, more research, more studies tell you that it is Jesse James buried in the ground, and it's not Jesse James buried in the ground. However, with all the proof, matching evidence, 33rd degree Mason, and correlation, we can see that Jesse James might well live. Now, the short answer to this would be, well, let's see. Let's put you in a situation where you're like this. It's the end of the age of the outlaws, and everything is coming to a collapse around you. Well, you know you're going to be killed, and you're tired of looking over your shoulder. You tell your cousin, Bob Ford, you tell him, okay, got a plan here. You're going to pretend to shoot me, and I already got a body who kind of looks like me. And you get the reward I get to keep all my gold money and leave with my name cleared, and I can live out my life with my children just fine. And meanwhile, you get the reward money and you get to live life up. And so basically, this would be a perfect win-win situation. And Jesse James being a folk hero, yeah, it would work out perfectly. Now, there is much more to talk and tell about this wonderful and beautiful story. And plus, we also know another thing, that Jesse's mother, Zerelda, actually said that this is not my son when they put out the dead body. But later she said that it was just because he had a beard, even though he just visited his mother 2 weeks ago.